What is going on? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to another week of Who Gives a Dram. We're here. It is March 9th, 2022, and we are in the heart of Irish Whiskey Month. So we're going to be reviewing a dram of Jameson Black Barrel today, as I said we would last week. So I hope that's going to be an interesting whiskey for you guys. It's going to be an interesting whiskey for me. That's all I know. And we're on episode 69. Nice. Episode 69 of Who Gives a Dram is we're 69. Nice. Episodes in. So that's crazy to think about. Never thought I'd get to episode 69. Nice. But anyways, before we get into the show, real quick, best way to support the podcast is by subscribing on all platforms and by liking the videos on YouTube and commenting and subscribing and following all the social media platforms. That's the best way to help us out. I do have merch available in the in the bio of my Instagram, so go check that out over there. And that's how you do it. That's how you do it. It is a late night for me. I'm recording this later than I usually do. Like maybe later than I ever have. It's almost 10 o'clock at night here. And I just got a busy next few days, so this is the only free time I had to record. So I've been kind of prepping for the show for the past, I don't know, half hour or so. Finally got to press record, and I'm tired, man. I'm tired. I got back to the gym today, day one back. It's been a few months since I've actually consistently lifted, so it felt good to get back there. If my voice sounds soft, it's because I'm tired and it's late, and I want to go to bed. I want to go to bed, but we're here, we're drinking whiskey, and we're reviewing whiskey. We got stuff we got to talk about. Some things have happened since last week, and we need to talk about them. So, like I said, we're doing Irish Whiskey Month from here until the end of March. Should have done it last week, but I didn't. We did Bomberger's 2021. I did release a blog on Bomberger's as well, and I received some nice messages for it. So thank you to everyone who reached out about the blog review. I really enjoy writing reviews about the whiskey that I drink as well as podcasting about them. So it means a lot when people reach out and say that the writing is good, because I always thought that was my best subject in school, was writing. So I just appreciate when that gets, when something I actually enjoy doing gets noticed, and it's not podcasting, because I feel like I've been podcasting for half my life now, but we're only on episode 69. Nice. So as I said, we're doing Jameson Black Barrel today. Jameson Black Barrel Irish Whiskey is going to be the whiskey that we're going to review. I've got a bottle of it here. And I'm excited to see, obviously, I've had plenty of it between myself and my brother. This has been a staple for us for a while. Also, shout out to Grant. He kind of turned me on to Jameson Black Barrel, because he always brought it to my family St. Patrick's Day party. So shout out to Grant. You're the man. I know you're listening. But this is going to be interesting to do on the show today. Let's put it right in the Glencairn. Not a lot. Well, maybe this will help me fall asleep. If anyone has any suggestions that's not melatonin on how to better fall asleep at night and stay asleep, shoot them my way, because your boy, I don't remember the last time I wasn't tired. And I feel like I'm a pretty healthy person. I feel like I have a relative low amount of stress in my life. And I have a good mental state. So if anyone has any ideas on how to remedy that, of just not being able to fall asleep real soon, maybe it's because I only work on the podcast at night. That could very well be it. So who knows though? But it is what it is. I'll sleep when I'm dead. So, few things I want to mention before we dive into the review. This is definitely going to be not a hour-long episode. This is going to be a bit on the shorter end. Even I say that every week, but then it ends up being like over 45 minutes when it's all said and done. So I say it's going to be on the shorter end. It's probably not going to be on the shorter end. There are some topics I want to touch on before, and I want to say thank you to. There was a YouTube. I think a guy who subscribes to the YouTube channel, who reached out on either my last episode or the episode before and said, Connor, I like your content. I've been keeping up with your content, but I would appreciate it if you timestamp your videos so that we can kind of decipher when you're talking about certain subjects, because sometimes I like to listen about everything you ramble on about, but sometimes I only have time for the review and I want to get to the review. And that meant a lot to me because that means I love constructive criticism. That's really the only way you get better at anything that you like to do. And B, that means people like to listen to my reviews. So I appreciated that. I unfortunately forgot your name, sir. But I wanted to say thanks. I'm going to start doing that now. So I'll try my best to put timestamps down on the show notes of the episode so that we can kind of talk about if you want to listen to my fight talk, if you want to listen to news talk, if you want to listen to the whiskey review, you can kind of dance around and get to the specific parts. You'll notice I didn't say movie talk in that sentence because I had teased potentially a new project coming along last week. And although nothing is officially official yet, I can say with full confidence that we have recorded an episode of what is going to be a brand new podcast presented by the Grapevine Media called Popcorn Pillow Talk. It's me, my good friend Matt over at the TMD podcast, and our good friend Zach, who is a new addition to the Grapevine Media team. All three guys who love movies, who love cinema, film, and want to talk about it. And it doesn't really fit the vibe of our current podcast roles, so we thought let's just start a new one. So we are starting that Popcorn Pillow Talk presented by the Grapevine Media. There's no episodes out yet, but it will be coming, and we are strictly focusing on film in that podcast, whether it's reviews of movies that just come out, reviews of old movies, top 10 lists, breaking news, different types of news topics within the film industry. That is what we're going to be completely focusing on with that podcast. And I'm super, super excited to do that because I always tried to fit movie talk on Who Gives a Dram, and it just never flowed as I hoped it would. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about movies on this podcast, but because I want to use Who Gives a Dram as a platform based around whiskey to speak about everything that I enjoy, but this is going to be specifically movies, and it's going to be a blast. So I will give all of you guys more information about that podcast once I know more about it. I'm not entirely too sure when we're going to drop episode 1, and so on and so forth. But the ball is rolling. We're working behind the scenes to get all the logistical stuff ready. We want to make sure we have a few episodes locked and loaded before releasing. We just recorded on Sunday, this past Sunday, so yesterday, our official review of The Batman, and we had almost an hour and a half conversation of some really good topics discussed. And I kid you not, I like to think that I have a pretty good eye and ear to what is a good conversation and a good podcast, and I really, really think that this was a fantastic conversation. A little bit funny. That's how I am. I'm loosey-goosey. I like to have a silly goose time, as you guys know. So does my boy Matt. Zach's the same way, but we also appreciate the film so much that we can't help but kind of be serious at times as well, in terms of appreciating the art and everything that is going into the creation of some of the most powerful things that you can do, make a movie. So that's gonna be a blast. Popcorn Pillow Talk, presented by the Grapevine Media. It's gonna be coming to airwaves and YouTube and a YouTube screen near you in the near future. But I'm excited to announce that here on episode 69, nice, of this podcast of Who Gives a Dram, and just another step forward, onward and upward, as they say, another step forward in this crazy world of podcasting and content creation, and I'm very excited. But one thing I do want to continue to hit on this podcast on, and again, I will timestamp this when I edit this podcast. Now I have to edit my podcast, which kind of sucks because I don't edit my podcast ever, but I'm going to write down. For sure should have done this before. For sure should have done this before, but I'm not going to. All right. Sorry about that. I got to write down when we're going to start the transitions now. Because right now I want to talk about UFC 272. I want to talk a little fight talk. I got one other whiskey news that I want to react on because I think it's ridiculous. One other piece of news after that, and then we'll get into the review. I'll make it quick. Anyways, UFC 272 happened this weekend. Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, in Nevada. It was a huge pay-per-view, a grudge match between two former roommates in Covington and Masvidal. It was a rematch, or not a rematch. It was a bout between two former roommates, two former best friends, two guys that know each other more than anyone else on the planet when it comes to their fighting styles, and they headlined this card that ended up being a pretty entertaining card, yet kind of like nothing happened that anybody didn't expect to happen. So we'll go through the main card first. I got to the fights a little late, so I did not see the opening fight of Sergey versus Greg Hardy. I know that Greg Hardy looked like he came in a little bit out of shape and got knocked out or lost via TKO in the first round, which makes me very happy. I do not like Greg Hardy. I don't think most people like Greg Hardy based on his past of domestic violence and just the way he kind of carries himself. I just don't feel like most people like him. So that was the last fight on Greg Hardy's contract. And if you look at his past, record here, I believe he's lost 4 of his past 6. It's hard to justify keeping him on the roster because he's a former NFL player. He kind of came into MMA late. He's obviously a fantastic athlete, but this isn't the place. The UFC is not the place where you hone your skills and you work on your fundamentals. We saw CM Punk try to do that, and we all know what happened there. So I think Greg Hardy, he's too big of a name and too old to really go onto the regional circuit and hone his craft there. So I just think that unless he goes to like Bare Knuckle or another promotion, I think the UFC is going to let him go. And I think that was his last UFC fight. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I don't wish ill will on anybody, but I hope it was his last UFC fight because the UFC heavyweight division does not need him. It is a pretty well stacked division at the time, thankfully. The second fight on the card was a welterweight bout between Kevin Holland and the Brazilian cowboy Alex Oliveira. And this was an interesting fight. Kevin Holland coming back down to welterweight after contending a few times at middleweight. And he put on an impressive performance. He got in trouble from Alex Oliveira in the first round. Alex Oliveira took his back for like the last minute or 30 seconds of round number 1. Kevin Holland gave a thumbs up to the camera saying, "No, I'm good," and he ended up getting the TKO victory late in round 2, which was nice to see. I like Kevin Holland. He's a real problem at welterweight. He's long, he's big, and I think if he can stack up a few more quality wins, he's going to be in the conversation of kind of the upper echelon of the division. And welterweight, as we know, is, again, another stacked division, and they're going to need some competition up there. Khamzat's coming up. We have Khamzat versus Gilbert Burns coming up very shortly, the next UFC pay-per-view. So those are two, top echelon guys. There's, really the top 15 of welterweight right now is a pretty stacked division. So Kevin Holland entering that conversation does nothing but improve the division. He's great on the mic. He's he's a very good performer, and he's a good fighter. So I was happy to see Kevin Holland win. Cowboy Alex Oliveira, the Brazilian cowboy, he's a legend. He's a great fighter, and he'll stay around, and he'll continue to fight kind of the bottom of the barrel, almost kind of act as a gatekeeper in a way, because he does have a name. And I don't know if they've done cowboy versus cowboy in the past. I feel like they did, and Cowboy Cerrone won. But Kevin Holland called out Cowboy Cerrone after the fight, and I honestly don't hate that fight. I mean, Cowboy Cerrone's fighting Joe Lozon, and I'm pretty sure that's his retirement fight. That's going to be his next fight in the next few months. So maybe that's probably not going to happen, but it would be nice to see that happen. Kevin Holland going from one cowboy to the next, two big names. Cowboy Cerrone's a huge name in the MMA world, so it would be two solid wins, and I would be willing to bet Kevin Holland would be heavily favored versus Cowboy Cerrone. The third fight on the card was Edson Barboza versus Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell, and Thug Nasty just went all straight Thug Nasty on Edson Barboza, completely dominated the fight. There was no instance where Bryce Mitchell was even remotely in danger. Took him to the ground, mauled him. I believe one judge gave the fight 30-25, which is like 2 10-8 rounds, which is insane. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that or not, but regardless, it happened. And Edson Barboza, is one of those guys. He's not in his prime anymore. You kind of wonder if he has the motivation to go forward. He's kind of utilized as a gatekeeper now to the upper echelon of the featherweight division. And he just got ragdolled by Bryce Mitchell. And Bryce Mitchell is a young stud, 27 years old. And he's going to be the future of that division. I mean, there are so many interesting matchups that he could fight currently. I don't even know who would be an appropriate matchup for him next. I mean, I don't know why, but the first fighter that comes to mind is Dan 50K Ige. I feel like that would be a fun fight. I feel like anyone with kind of like that explosive power is going to be who beats Bryce Mitchell, because Bryce Mitchell is just so good on the ground that he's going to need to be blitzed. So someone along those lines. I don't think Jeremy Stevens would have been a great matchup, but he's not in the UFC anymore, I don't think so. But shout out Thug Nasty. And he also said that he was donating half of his purse. So he made $90K. He was donating $45K to a local children's hospital in Louisiana. I think that's where he's from, or somewhere, Alabama, somewhere in that realm. And Dana White said he's going to match that. So that's cool, from Dana, from Thug Nasty. And, that's not chump change to Bryce Mitchell, I'm sure. I mean, $45K, because you think about it, when you think of a UFC fighter's pay, I mean, let's say he's taking home $90,000. That's probably before taxes. And then you have to pay the gym, the coaches, the expenses for everything, the entire training camp. That's a lot of money to go away. So I'd assume that, $45,000 is eating up a large chunk of what he's actually seeing. And it's nice to know that Dana is matching that. I'm sure he's going to hook up Bryce Mitchell. I mean, I'm sure he's going to hook him up with some type of bonus as well. That was a great fight. I loved that fight. Probably, honestly, my favorite fight of the card was Barboza versus Bryce Mitchell. Then we had our co-main, Rafael dos Anjos versus Renato Moicano. Moicano took the fight on like 2 weeks' notice or something like that. It was a 5-round fight because it was supposed to be a main event and on a fight night, but they moved it to co-main here, and they changed opponents, for for RDA very quickly, but they still kept it 5 rounds. Very, very strange. But RDA won very handedly. I mean, he just messed up Moicano bad. And I'm pretty sure I said that I heavily favored RDA. I think I got all my predictions right for this card, because I know I thought RDA was going to win, and he did. And I think RDA is in a very, very unique position where he is number 6 in the world at this was performed at catchweight, but he fights at welterweight. So he's number 6 in the world. He's he's coming off some pretty solid wins. And I think that he's going to be looking for either the next fight closer to a title shot or a big money fight. And RDA has been around so long that he kind of deserves what he wants. I think he's spent some of the most time in the UFC octagon, so he kind of deserves anything that he wants to do. I think the UFC will listen to it. And I honestly don't hate the idea of RDA versus Conor McGregor, as Conor McGregor's comeback fight. Now, I don't know if that will actually happen. I know McGregor would take the fight, and I know RDA would take the fight. So it's just a matter if the UFC wants to make that happen. But based on RDA's performance this past weekend, I don't think. I mean, he's going to be a tough night for Conor. I would probably favor Conor in that fight slightly. But that's a tough night at the office for both those gentlemen. So I think that would be a very, very smart move going forward. I just don't see McGregor returning at lightweight. He might fight at lightweight again. I just think he's going to fight at 170 for the time being. I mean, if you look at his pictures, he's jacked. So, but yeah, shout out to RDA. Another dominant win, unanimous decision. Then we had our main event of the evening. Colby Chaos Covington versus Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. And if we're going off nicknames, that's exactly... Colby Covington lived up to his nickname precisely, whereas Jorge Masvidal didn't look like he was too game because he just got mollywopped through this fight. And I knew that was going to happen. Deep in my heart, I knew that Colby Covington was just going to wrestle the hell out of Masvidal, make it a boring fight, because that's all that Colby Covington does, and just grind out a unanimous decision, and that's exactly what he did. Masvidal just didn't have any answers. I mean, Masvidal is great. I love Masvidal. I think he's real. I think he's entertaining. He's one of the biggest draws in the company for a reason. But Colby Covington is probably the best welterweight on the planet, not named Kamaru Usman. So it was tough for me to really see how Masvidal was going to win. And he didn't. He got mollywopped. He got dominated. He landed one good punch. He didn't even really win the stand-up exchanges. He had some very, very solid leg and body kicks. But other than that, I mean, Covington was, again, coming forward with chaos. He was coming forward with combinations and landing and, making Jorge Masvidal retreat towards the fence. And once Masvidal got close to the fence, you knew the round was over, because Covington was going to shoot and he was going to get him down or put him in a clinch, and it was just going to be, the round was going to be over. I had no doubt that Masvidal was not going to get finished. Colby Covington just, for some reason, does not like to finish fighters. I don't know if he can't or he just doesn't want to, but it was just a mollywopping. It was a mollywopping for Colby Covington, and he's performed real well, and he deserved, I think they got fight of the night. I don't know if, it probably was fight of the night in terms of like competitiveness, but I would have liked, my MVP of the night was definitely Bryce Mitchell, but Colby Covington was up there. He really asserted his dominance on Masvidal. And Colby Covington called out Dustin Poirier after the fight. I don't hate that call out, because they, again, kind of the same concept as Jorge Masvidal. They both trained at American Top Team, ATT. And they both hate each other. They both say it's on site, whether it's in the octagon or not, they're going to fight. And it's just another bad blood match, because it's going to be tough for Covington to get that third Usman fight. But I think if you're Covington, you really should fight the winner of Gilbert Burns versus Khamzat Chimaev. That fight's happening in April. I'm sure Covington needs a little bit of rest from this 5-round fight, although I don't think he took much damage. It looked like his leg got a little bit chewed up, but I'm saying that the winner of that fight versus Covington is an awesome fight because it's something we haven't seen before regardless. We have never seen Gilbert Burns versus Kobe Covington. Gilbert Burns again is it's kind of the same concept as Covington, maybe a little bit of a better striker, but both great on the ground, both tenacious, both game, both ready to rock and roll. The difference is Gilbert Burns finishes fighters, whereas Kobe Covington doesn't. Although I would say Kobe Covington would probably be heavily favored in that matchup. But the outlier is this. Khamzat versus Kobe Covington is a doozy because, I mean, I'm not going to lie, you guys. I don't think Kobe Covington wins that fight. It's going to depend a lot on what we see Khamzat looking like versus Gilbert Burns. But if he walks through Gilbert Burns, just like he's done every single opponent up to this point, I mean, I don't know if anyone beats him. I don't know if Usman beats him. So Kobe Covington should fight the winner of Burns versus Khamzat next, and I think he will. I think Kobe Covington isn't a big enough draw on his own to warrant kind of those money fights. Poirier's going to go after Nate Diaz, and Poirier's going to go after the money as well, but he's a bona fide draw now, and Kobe Covington just is not. So I think that's what the UFC is going to make him do. And in the meantime, Kamaru Usman will fight Leon Edwards for the belt. Kamaru Usman's, I always see that he wants to be active this year, so I mean I wouldn't be surprised if he takes Leon Edwards fairly soon and then goes right into like the second half of the year with either Covington or Chimaev, in the distance. So, because I don't see Gilbert Burns beating Chimaev, I don't see Khamzat losing, and I'm kind of on the Khamzat train. I love that guy. And for Jorge Masvidal, same thing. I mean, he's getting paid too much to really fight the up-and-comers and have those number one contender fights, so he's just going to fight big time. I can also see Conor McGregor being a great fight for Masvidal as well. That would sell all the pay-per-views and make all the money, so if the UFC is just looking for the next big moneymaker, they should make that fight. They're both going to take that fight, and the trash talk would be fantastic leading up to it. And honestly, Jorge Masvidal is not a very, very big 170er. And Conor McGregor's looking huge. I'm sure Masvidal might be a little bit of a bigger guy, just structurally, but it'd be a great fight. Both guys are going to be game. It's going to be standing up. It's going to be, a stand-up war, and it's all about who's gonna land the better strikes at that point. Who's gonna be more creative. I don't know who I like in that fight, but I can see Masvidal taking that fight next. I don't really know what's next for Masvidal. I think he's definitely going to fight again. I just don't know who. I don't think they're going to give him McGregor, so maybe maybe they try to get Nate Diaz back in there, but I don't think that will be a thing. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what Masvidal is going to do next. But realistically, or in terms of monetarily, the best decision would be Conor McGregor. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I think it honestly makes a little bit more sense for McGregor to fight RDA, like I just said. But it was a great card. I enjoyed watching it. It was a little underwhelming at times, but it was entertaining. And shout out to Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell for dominating Barboza, and shout out to everyone. That was a great card. I think I called all the fights right, which makes me happy. So that makes me happy. Now I want to quickly talk on what do I want to quickly talk on now? I want to quickly talk on, let's see here. I wanted to quickly talk on this new special release Jack Daniels Coy Hill that is coming out this year, the 2022 special release. It is a something ridiculous, like a let me get my notes up here. What is it? It's a 77.9% ABV or 155.8 proof. That's even high for a hazmat whiskey. I don't understand the hype behind Jack Daniels Coy Hill. This year's release, you see it. I think we've seen it, we being my brother and I have seen it on the shelves for, man, $350. What's so special about it? I mean, it's Jack Daniels, and listen, I'm not hating on Jack Daniels because they're single barrel, barrel strength, um, are great offerings. And I know they make quality product. We did Jack Daniels 10-year. I enjoyed it. They're coming out with good quality product. It's just like, what is so special about this Coy Hill? Is it because it's high proof? Is that what people like? Now, I understand, I suppose, why people like high proof, but is anyone really going to enjoy a 155.8 proof whiskey? Is there going to be any taste on it? Honestly. Because I don't think there's going to be. I really, really don't think there's going to be a taste on it. I think it's going to taste like motor oil and like oak. Like if you just put gasoline on a board and let it soak in, and then just like take the juices from the soaked in gasoline on the oak board, it's just going to taste nasty. And I won't knock it till I try it, if I ever try it. Probably won't. It'll probably be released and then go for like $400 on the secondary, and that's what everyone will see it as, because that's the world that we live in now. I will never pay $350 for a Jack Daniels product ever. It's tough for me to pay $350 for anything, like anything, like even a car. As I say that as I have a 2021 Colorado. Sometimes I think the worst investments are cars. Well, they are the worst investments technically in terms of depreciation, but thinking about how much money I've spent on vehicles in the past just makes me very upset. And I do want to talk about one other thing as well. So that was a really short segment on Coy Hill. I don't have anything else to talk about it with. And if you're watching the video, yes, I am writing down when I'm starting to talk about these segments so I can time frame these. I want to talk about these new proposed rules that are coming into the MLB as of, I think, today or maybe yesterday. And there's 3 significant ones that I want to touch on because I find them super interesting, especially, coming from a baseball background. I'll have to reach out to my boy Tony, Barrel Proof Baseball Podcast. If you haven't seen our episode, our interview together, go check it out. It was probably like a month ago that I released it. Just an hour and a half of nonsense. It's a great, great interview or discussion. It wasn't even an interview. We just talked. I'll have to ask him his opinion on this, but the 3 rule changes that I saw were proposed from the Players Union were, they want to ban the shift, they want to make the actual bases larger, and they want to establish a pitch clock. And I have opinions in all 3. I will start with banning shifts. When I first heard that, I didn't particularly agree with it. As to, why would you prevent the defense from doing what they want to do to make a play? It's almost like you're giving them a disadvantage. If Big Papi is at the plate, for a fact he's probably going to pull the ball. So why would you not set yourself up for for more of a success potentially by putting the second baseman in shallow right field and putting the third baseman at shortstop, putting the shortstop in like shallow center field? I don't understand it. But the more I think about it, the more I do know that baseball does need to change in terms of being more fun and being more enjoyable to watch. And 3.5-hour baseball games just aren't going to cut it anymore, and they're not going to make any money. So this is a way just to drive offense. As all baseball rules will be moving forward, they're going to be offense forward. They want to go back to Mark McGwire versus Sammy Sosa, but without the steroids. Even though, if someone wants to take steroids, let them take steroids. But that's just me. Although I am kind of I'm not a baseball purist, but because I played for so long, it kind of still bothers me to see that they're going to ban the shift, and it just doesn't sit right, but I get it. The one I really don't like is making the bases larger, and that's specifically because I was a catcher growing up, and that was my craft. That's what I dedicated my life to. Just very similar to how much I love this podcast. That's how much I loved catching, and my favorite feeling in the world was throwing a motherfucker out of second base or third base or a back pick at first base. Throwing someone out was the best feeling in the world. And they're just trying to make that a little bit more difficult by making the bases larger. I can't imagine any other reason them doing that other than they want to increase the rate of successful steals. And that just kind of bothers me as a catcher because that's putting our boys at risk. Like, you can have a cannon of an arm, but even if it's just a few inches larger, that's all you need when it's a bang-bang play like that. You can have a picture-perfect throw, but, it's almost going to be like if the base runner messes up, that's the only way you're going to throw him out. And I just don't agree with that. I think the catcher is there. I think seeing someone get thrown out is a great sight. I think people love it. I think it's entertaining, and especially coming from a catcher's perspective, it's one of the hardest things you can do in baseball, besides actually hit the baseball, is throw someone out as a catcher. And I just don't want to see that go away. I loved that feeling. I love watching it, and I know how difficult it is firsthand. I've done it many times. I'm sure a few of you listening to this podcast played baseball with me at one point. And it's difficult. So I feel for the catchers if they actually move forward with that rule. But again, they're just trying to drive offense back into baseball. And also the last one, the pitch clock. That's been needed for a long time. I think it should be like 30 seconds at the most between pitches, maybe more like 25, just to hurry things up. Having Nomar Garciaparra fixing his glove 17 times before an at bat just can't happen anymore because no one takes steroids and it's getting kind of boring. So we need to move the game forward a little bit, and I can understand that part. So I am all in favor for the pitch clock. And honestly, I don't really care about the shifts. It's the larger bases that kind of grinds my gears, but it is what it is. So let's write this down. Gonna have to figure out how to fix that because I gotta time frame these now. Let's dive in right to the whiskey review, guys. Let's go in. It's been 37 minutes. I always say it's gonna be short. It's gonna be a shorter episode. It's never a shorter episode when I say that. But we'll try to make this a little bit quick so we can go in. There's not a lot of history that I know behind the Jameson Black Barrel, but we'll try our best. Jameson Black Barrel, obviously, it's a line within the Jameson portfolio. It is kind of a more premium offering than the regular standard Jameson. From what I can understand, it's distilled by Middleton, who does all of Jameson. I think it was released around 2012 for the first time, from what I saw in my research. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's when it was released. And I did review regular Jameson, so if you go back into the annals of Who Gives a Dram, I'm sure you can find that episode. I forgot what it was last March. That's when it was. It was last March. So go back. You can listen to my Jameson review there. What's different about Jameson Black Barrel as opposed to Jameson, just a regular Jameson, is how it's aged and how it's blended. Jameson Black Barrel, it's the mash bill it's 100% malted and unmalted barley. And it's blended from two separate whiskeys. There's one whiskey that they use. It's a small batch grain whiskey that's distilled at Middleton. That is usually around a 6-year grain whiskey from what I can tell. And I don't know the particular grain in it, but based on what I can remember in terms of taste, it might be more of like a high corn type of thing. I don't know that. Again, I don't know that for a fact. That it might be barley. I don't know. I'm not entirely too sure. I don't know if anyone knows, but based on the tasting notes that I remember getting, it's something sweeter, and that grain whiskey is matured in heavily charred ex bourbon barrels. So you have that grain whiskey, and that's blended with malted and unmalted barley that's put through pot still whiskey. It's aged in sherry casks. So you have this grain whiskey that's aged in heavily charred bourbon barrels, mixed with this malted and unmalted pot still whiskey that is put through sherry casks, aged in sherry casks, and the result is Jameson Black Barrel. The pot still whiskeys are usually distilled for 12 years. Like I said, the grain whiskey is usually used when it's aged for 6 years. So they say it's like a 12-year blend. From what I can read online, there's no age statement on the bottle, but interesting nonetheless. It's 80 proof, 40% alcohol by volume. As I said, I think it was started in 2012. Don't quote me on that. And the MSRP on this bad boy is like $35. So it's very readily available. It's very easy to get, and it's relatively cost efficient. I haven't done too many Irish whiskeys on the show. I do enjoy Irish whiskey, but it's probably my least favorite out of the main ones. I mean, bourbon and scotch are up there for me, and then Irish whiskey is fighting right next to rye for 3 and 4. There are some Irish whiskeys that I absolutely adore, and there are some that I don't necessarily adore. Same with ryes. So I'm interested to kind of see what this is going to pick up, how I'm going to pick this up. It's a bit darker than I remember, which is interesting. Being triple distilled, that doesn't really surprise me. Interesting on the nose. This bottle has been open for a while. That's kind of another thing you got to note, that this bottle's been open for quite a bit. But very delicate on the nose. You get that malted barley kind of there. It's a very barley forward. But it's got like a nice fruit on it as well. Almost like an apple-ish type of note on there. A little bit of a darker like chocolate on the back end. There's not a lot of oak on this. Oh, man. I can pick up a little bit of that charred oak a little bit on there. You really got to put your sniffer in there and really dive in, but not a whole lot. It's almost like a saltiness on it as well, like a malted like that barley is forward. You can tell this is an Irish. At least I can. But what's interesting is it's not as obvious of an Irish as it is. Like, there are some bourbon notes on this. There's some vanilla in here. There's a little bit of honey. Almost like there's nothing dark in here like I usually get with a lot of bourbons. There's no butterscotch or molasses or anything like that. But vanilla and honey are very evident. It's got a nose more like a bourbon, which I enjoy. I really enjoy the nose on this. I'm really, really enjoying it. Let's get right into the taste. It is late, so let's get into the taste. So cheers, everybody. Episode 69, nice, of Who Gives a Dram. Jameson Black Barrel, 2022 Irish Whiskey Takeover. Let's get into it. Bit more malty on the palate. It's got a nice little kick on it at the end there. Nothing major, but it's sitting a bit more than I would expect it to. Not a whole lot going on. The palate is definitely not as sophisticated as the nose. Lots of honey. Lots of honey. It's very smooth. Now, I know that's a debatable term to use, but it is very smooth. It doesn't... The problem is it's 80 proof. Like, it's not coating my mouth. It's not really staying with me. I mean, there's some flavors on there. There's a little bit of, like I said, honeysuckle, some vanilla. I wouldn't be able to tell if this was a charred oak barrel or not. I'm not getting a whole lot of the green apple that I usually get with Irish whiskeys, and I want to actually do this. We are going to compare the two right now, and we're going to compare this to regular Jameson. I think this is the first time I'm doing this on the show. We're going to compare this to actual Jameson. Just the regular old triple distilled Jameson that we all know and love and we've all thrown up on once or twice. And like I said, I haven't done this since last year. I don't even think I've cracked open this bottle since last year, if I'm being completely honest. I had to pull it out of the back of my whiskey cabinet behind me before the episode started. And it's the same thing. Like, if we're going... There's actually no nose on this Jameson. The Jameson Black Barrel definitely has a more bourbon-forward note to it. Honey, vanilla are what I'm getting right off the bat. And that Jameson is more like that malty, appley, Irish, standard Irish whiskey note that I always get. Very, very backwards. I don't know if it's because this whiskey's old or what, but not a whole lot coming there. Yeah, this Jameson is nothing compared to the Black Barrel. Nothing compared to the Black Barrel. The Black Barrel is way better than the regular Jameson. And I think that's not, like, of a surprise to anybody, but, like, they're both light. They're both 80 proof. You know what I mean? There's not a lot going on with either of them. But the Black Barrel has a much more, compared to the regular Jameson, a much more complex palate to it because you do get those bourbon forward notes, and I think that's because of the grain whiskey that they blend this with. I would be willing to bet that's why. Like, I'm barely getting anything on this Jameson, to be completely honest. It's like a green apple, almost like a sour green apple. Like, it's good. It's fine. Like, I feel like I could... Reminds me of my younger days, just shooting Jameson. Jameson's definitely crushable, you know what I mean? Like, it's not bad, it's just Jameson. Tastes like watered down sour green apple juice. There's a little bit of kick to it. I remember back in the day when Jameson was such a hard shot for me to do. And I'm not good at shooting. I don't like to shoot whiskey. But if you do, it's Jameson. And now it's just like water to me. But this Black Barrel is much more impressive. It's definitely the premium version of Jameson. It's just got a much more complex palate and nose to it. I really enjoy how I'm picking up more on those bourbon notes of the honey. The oak is more pronounced on this. The vanilla aspects, but there's also that malted barleyiness. I get that, like, that almost salty type of texture on the Black Barrel more so than on the regular Jameson. The chocolate on the nose is definitely there. It's definitely got a little bit of a darker sweetness, just a tad, not much. It's very light otherwise. And I think it's good. I would definitely recommend the Black Barrel over the Jameson. And for the small price increase, I think it's a far superior product. But then again, not hating on Jameson because it's a classic. I don't remember what I rated Jameson, which is probably good. I don't want my opinion to be skewed. I'm going Jameson Black Barrel. I mean, it's probably like an 8.4. Like, it's good. Again, I don't remember what I gave Jameson the first time, but like Black Barrel is good. I'd probably give it like an 8 point, like an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8.3. I'm gonna give it an 8.3. It's good. Like I would buy it and I would have it, but it's not. I'm not reaching for Black Barrel. Like I'm reaching for what I enjoy. I'm reaching for the bourbons. I'm reaching for the Isla Scotches. Before I'm ever reaching for Black Barrel. But I'll enjoy this. I always make my Jameson and gingers with Black Barrel as opposed to regular Jameson. And I would recommend keeping it on the shelf. I think it's something that you should have. I think it's something that is definitely worth checking out if you've never had it. And I would recommend it, especially for $35. I'd definitely recommend it. There's a lot of better whiskeys on the market, but I think that's to be understood. Like, you don't get a Jameson and think that you're getting the greatest product on the planet. I mean, I'm sure there are dozens and dozens of Irish whiskeys that are much more quality than Jameson and Jameson Black Barrel. But at the end of the day, Jameson is Jameson. It's one of the most iconic brands in the world. And this Black Barrel is them showing like, hey, we have a skill too. We're not just putting out this very, average Irish whiskey product. We have a little bit of skill here. We can do some cool things. And Jameson Black Barrel is a cool concept. That grain whiskey gives it more of that bourbon type of feel to it. And I think a lot of people who listen to my podcast and watch this review will enjoy that. So 8.3 from me, Jameson Black Barrel. I enjoy it. And that's going to do it for the review, and that's going to do it for the podcast. We're at 52 minutes just about. So I knew that this was going to go long. I knew it. I could just feel it because it's late at night and I can't stop myself from talking. But I think it was cool. I'm pretty sure this was the first time we've done two whiskeys head to head live on the podcast. Don't quote me on that, but I had fun. So I am going to finish this Black Barrel, and then I'm going to go to bed and get ready for another day tomorrow. But before I go, I want to quickly remind you guys that the best way to support the show, go follow me on all my social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Who Gives a Dram. Go follow us at Bourbon with Friends as well. If you head over to Bourbon with Friends, you can buy tickets to the Kentucky Bourbon Ball happening April 23rd in benefit of Foals of Honor. It's a charity event. If you're in Kentucky on April 23rd, I'd recommend you come. The money being spent is going towards a fantastic cause. 100% of the profits going towards a fantastic cause, and you get to drink with me and all the cool whiskey guys that are going to be there. Jackie Zeiken's doing our tasting for the VIPs. We have Cash Daniels emceeing. We have Bill Binder will be there. We have a whole skew of whiskey personalities that are going to show up, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great night. So the Kentucky Bourbon Ball, head over to Bourbon with Friends on Instagram. You can get tickets to that. And make sure you follow Bourbon with Friends everywhere else. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Who Gives a Dram? Just search me up if you listen to the podcast. Subscribe. Please subscribe. It's the best way for this show to grow, and be on the lookout. If you're into my movie talk, be on the lookout. Popcorn Pillow Talk, presented by Grapevine Media, coming to an airwave near you, and it's going to be unlike any movie review show you've ever heard, because we're three guys who love film and just want to have a silly goose time. So that's going to be a great podcast, and that's going to do it. Episode 69, nice, in the books. Episode 69. Episode 70 will be next week. We're going to do another Irish whiskey. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I will figure that out soon. But until then, Nick Bossy's playing me out. What Happened to Country, available on all platforms. And always remember, whiskey's the water of life, so let's start living.
My hands are tired from paying my bills, staring at a bottle, I'm aiming to kill. The weeks passing by and the seasons keep changing. I'm playing my song, trying to make me a name. People say as they walk out the bar, the kid's gone places, maybe even a star. But they don't play country down in Nashville today, just the same chord progression with nothing to say. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. They use auto-tune now down on Music Row, 'cause true country died there a long time ago. No, they don't play Waylon on the boulevard, but they'll do anything to be rock stars. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. But I do believe there is hope for us yet, 'cause there's millions of people who cannot forget the way Johnny Cash brought a tear to their eyes, or how Marty Robbins painted Texas skies. What happened to country? 3 chords and the truth. And who's gonna step up and fill their big shoes, writing songs about outlaws, singing all night, and songs that'll make a grown man cry. A grown man cry. A grown man cry. I won't let country die.